Have you ever wondered what it means to walk between worlds, to breathe in that fragile space between gods and men, where words grow wings and lies start to sound a lot like truth? Tonight, we step into one of the quietest, strangest corners of Greek mythology, a story told not through power, but through motion, through laughter, through the sound of footsteps you were never supposed to hear. This is the story of Hermes, the trickster, the traveler, the god who never stood still. They say he was born at dawn, and by sunset, he'd already stolen from the heavens. But this isn't a tale about theft. It's about movement, that restless spark living inside every soul, the one that refuses to stop, no matter how the world tries to hold it down. You can feel him in every breeze, in every half-smile hiding a secret, in every promise made after midnight. Hermes, the messenger, yes, but also the bridge between all things, life and death, truth and deceit, gods and mortals. He spoke every language, walked every road, and carried messages that weren't just words, but destiny itself. If stories like this bring you peace, if you find calm in slow, ancient whispers about the gods, then you're in the right place. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, but only if these myths truly help you rest. And if you're listening somewhere out there in the dark, drop your city and time down below. It's oddly soothing to know just how far Hermes' voice travels tonight. So, take a deep breath. Let the noise fade away, because this isn't just another myth. It's a journey through imagination. And Hermes, the restless god of motion, is about to take you with him. They say it happened in the hush before sunrise, that fragile hour when the sky is still deciding whether to be night or morning. On the slopes of Mount Cyllene, hidden deep within a quiet cave, a newborn god took his first breath. His mother, Maia, one of the shy daughters of Atlas, had chosen this place far from Olympus, a secret corner of the world where silence could raise her child in peace. But peace was never meant for him. The moment Hermes opened his eyes, there was a glint, not of innocence, but of curiosity, that restless shimmer that belongs only to those who will never sit still. He didn't cry like other newborns. He laughed, a soft, knowing laugh like he already understood the joke of being alive. By the time the sun rose, Maia was fast asleep, and by the time she woke, her son was gone. Hermes, barely a few hours old, had already stepped out into the waking world, naked feet against cold earth, a grin stretching across his tiny face. The mountains were his playground, and curiosity his compass. He didn't walk, he glided, like the wind was already whispering his name. That morning, the air was filled with the scent of dawn, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed softly, the sacred herd of Apollo, the sun god himself. To anyone else, that sound would have been a warning. To Hermes, it was an invitation. He found the herd grazing lazily on the plain, each beast shining golden under the first light of day. Their movement fascinated him, slow, steady, proud. Everything Hermes was not. And then, a spark, the thought, a trick. The little god gathered reeds and branches, twisting them into makeshift sandals to cover his footprints. Then, with clever little hands, he turned the cattle's hooves backward, so anyone who followed would think they had gone the other way. It was the first lie in history told not with words, but with movement. When Apollo discovered his herd missing, the sun blazed hotter than ever before. The god of light, furious and unrelenting, followed the tracks only to find himself walking in circles. The world laughed quietly as the trick unfolded. Hermes, meanwhile, had led the cattle into a hidden glen, lit a small fire, and, in a moment that would echo through myth, offered 2 of them as a sacrifice to the gods. Not out of reverence, but out of instinct. It was as if he already knew how to speak the language of divine exchange. And then, from the very sinews of the slain cattle, he created something new, a sound no one had ever heard before. He took the empty shell of a tortoise, strung it with the gut of the beasts, and plucked the strings. Music. Soft, trembling, and eternal. The first lyre. The melody drifted through the mountains like a dream. It was innocent, yet mischievous, the sound of creation born from a crime. When Apollo finally found him, Hermes was sitting by the fire, cradling the lyre in his arms, eyes bright with a calm that only lyres possess. The sun god towered over him, his golden aura burning the edges of the cave. "Where are my cattle, little thief?" Apollo thundered. Hermes smiled. "Cattle? Me? I was just making music." Even Zeus himself couldn't help but laugh when he saw them together. The furious Apollo and the baby trickster who had fooled a god. The heavens trembled not with rage, but with amusement. For the first time, Olympus saw something new. A god not born for war or wisdom, but for wit. A mind sharp enough to charm even the king of the gods. In the end, Hermes played his lyre for Apollo, and the song melted away the sun god's anger. It was gentle, playful, and perfect. By the time the music ended, Apollo was smiling. He took the lyre, gave Hermes his golden staff in return. And from that day they were bound as brothers. Zeus, watching from above, saw in Hermes something rare. A messenger in the making. A god who could move between the heavens and the earth, between light and shadow, truth and deception, and carry words through all of it. And so the newborn thief became divine, not by power, but by cleverness, by motion, by laughter that echoed through eternity. That night, Maya found him sleeping peacefully again, a faint smile still on his lips, as if dreaming of new tricks yet to come. Outside, the moon rose, and the mountains whispered his name, Hermes, the god who was born running. They say some gods were born to rule, some to destroy, and a rare few to move. Hermes belonged to that restless kind of divinity, the kind that can't sit still, that drifts like smoke between boundaries others dare not cross. He wasn't made of thunder or flame. He was made of motion. He was the space between things, between one breath and the next, between truth and a well-timed lie. After his first trick, the theft of Apollo's cattle, Olympus never looked at him the same way again. Zeus saw in him not just mischief, but potential, a messenger who could slip through realms unseen, one who could speak to both gods and men, without being fully either. So Zeus summoned him. The skies opened, and Hermes, still young, stood before the king of the gods, barefoot, wild-haired, the faint echo of laughter still clinging to him like perfume. "Child," Zeus said, "you move faster than light, and lie smoother than truth. That makes you dangerous and valuable." With that, he gave Hermes a gift, a pair of winged sandals, glimmering like morning dew. They whispered softly when they touched the air, like the wings of a bird deciding whether to fly. And with them, Zeus gave him his first duty, to carry messages between the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. It was an honor, and a curse, because once you become the bridge between worlds, you never truly belong to any of them. Hermes began to travel, through skies that never ended, and roads that led to no one. He spoke with mortals who trembled in prayer, and with gods who trembled in pride. He carried secrets, promises, warnings, and sometimes the final goodbyes of those who could not speak them themselves. It was Hermes who guided souls down to the underworld, his footsteps light and steady, his voice a calm thread through the dark. They called him Psychopompus, the guide of souls, and though his heart was always quick to laugh, those who walked beside him on that silent road knew his kindness was deeper than his mischief. Even Hades respected him, the god of the dead, grim and unyielding, because Hermes was the only one who could enter his realm uninvited and leave untouched. The boundary meant nothing to him. Death itself had to make room when Hermes passed. But even gods of motion need a reason to return. And Hermes found his joy in the chaos of Olympus. He became the one who carried gossip from god to god, who could deliver a message and twist it just enough to make a storm follow. He was the laughter in Zeus's court, the smirk behind Hera's fury, the one who whispered in both sides of a feud, just to see what truth would crawl out of it. But Hermes wasn't cruel. He just understood something the others didn't, that truth and lies were two faces of the same coin. And he was the one flipping it. When mortals prayed, they didn't always ask him for blessings. Sometimes they asked him for luck, for a lie that worked, for a way out of trouble. And Hermes, ever the trickster, never judged them for it. He understood survival, the art of slipping through cracks when the doors are closed. In the markets of Athens, thieves whispered his name under their breath before stealing, and travelers carved his symbols into stones along the road. He became the god of crossroads, because every decision, every risk, was a kind of gamble, and Hermes loved the gamble. They say he could charm the snakes, talk to the winds, and bargain with death itself, and somehow always come out smiling. There was a rhythm to him, like the world danced slightly faster whenever he passed by. But beneath the laughter, there was a shadow, the quiet loneliness of a god who belonged everywhere and nowhere. Because when you spend eternity moving between worlds, you start to wonder which one is truly home. Sometimes at twilight, Hermes would stand on the edge of Olympus, watching the earth turn below. The sound of mortal life, faint laughter, the hum of cities, the crackle of campfires, reached him like a memory he never owned. And for a moment, the trickster went silent. He didn't crave worship. He didn't want temples. He only wanted the world to keep moving, to never fall still, because stillness to Hermes was death. And so, every time a traveler crossed paths, every time a deal was struck, or a letter was sent, or a lie saved a life, Hermes smiled, because those were the signs of motion, his motion. He was the god of travelers, thieves, merchants, and liars, but also of dreamers, poets, and the lost. The ones who never stop searching, never stop running, never stop changing. And that's what made him divine. Not power, not fear, but motion, pure and unstoppable. The heartbeat of the world itself. There's a strange kind of genius in mischief, a beauty in the art of bending rules, not to break them, but to see how far they can stretch before the world notices. And no one, not even the gods, played that game better than Hermes. By now, Olympus knew what he was, the messenger, the traveler, the thief. But beneath that easy grin and quick wit, he was something else, a mind that moved faster than lightning, and a heart that laughed in the face of consequence. Hermes never wanted chaos for its own sake. He just wanted movement. And when Olympus grew dull, when the gods sat too long on their golden thrones, he found ways to make the heavens spin again. One morning, Apollo found his sacred bow missing. By noon, Hera discovered her peacock feathers tied to Zeus's throne in the shape of a crown. By dusk, Dionysus was laughing uncontrollably, his wine jug mysteriously refilling every time he tried to put it down. And Hermes? He was sitting at the edge of the clouds, barefoot, plucking invisible strings in the air, pretending he knew nothing at all. Zeus would scold him, half smiling, half exasperated. "Hermes," he'd say, "you test the patience of the heavens." And Hermes would bow deeply, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Just making sure the heavens still have patience to test, Father." But not all his tricks were jokes. Some were mercy in disguise. When mortals stole from temples, Hermes whispered in their ears, "Run faster." When travelers lost their way in the wild, he guided them through storms unseen. And when lovers lied, as lovers often do, Hermes helped their lies sound like poetry. He was the god of loopholes, the quiet savior of the desperate, the one who slipped messages through locked doors, and smiles through the cracks of despair. And still, he never stopped moving, never stopped learning how to be everywhere at once. He could sit beside Zeus in Olympus, and in the same moment, walk through the dusty markets of Athens, where mortals sold dreams and stories for a coin. To them, Hermes was not just a god. He was an idea, a reminder that quick minds could win where strong hands failed, that speed and wit could outlive power. Once, they say, he met an old man on the road, a farmer with a broken cart and a tired heart. Hermes, disguised as a traveler, helped him fix it, shared his bread, and listened to his story about a lost son. When the man turned to thank him, the stranger was gone. Only a faint shimmer of winged dust remained on the ground. The next morning, the man found a small pouch of gold inside the cart, and a note carved into the wood that read, "Keep moving." That was Hermes's gift. Not gold, but motion, the push to keep walking when life stands still. But even the gods of laughter have shadows. And Hermes's came the day he was asked to deceive for war. Zeus called him to deliver a message, one meant to spark conflict between two kingdoms. Hermes obeyed because that was his duty. He flew faster than thought, words glowing like sparks in his hands. But as he spoke the message, he saw what it would do, how many lives would fall because of it. And for the first time, Hermes hesitated. He delivered the words, yes, but changed just one. A single word, soft, harmless, enough to delay war for one season, enough to save a few thousand souls from dying before spring. When Zeus found out, he didn't punish him. He just looked at him long and hard and said, "You twist even truth for kindness." Hermes smiled, but there was a shadow in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He had learned that even messengers carry burdens, and even lies can be mercy. Later that night, he sat alone at the edge of the heavens, feet dangling above the mortal world, watching the fires of men burn below. The laughter had faded for a while. He wasn't thinking of tricks or songs, just the strange weight of being the bridge between gods and humans. A gust of wind brushed past him, and he whispered to it, "Tell them to keep going, even when they're tired, even when the world stands still." The wind carried his words down to earth, and somewhere in a dream, a mortal heard them, a traveler walking alone at night, feeling suddenly less alone. That's how Hermes worked his magic. Not with thunder or prophecy, but with small mercies, with whispers that made mortals believe they weren't forgotten. Because that's the secret of every trickster. They don't just fool the world. They remind it to stay alive. They say time forgets everything, but not Hermes, because he was never meant to stay in one place long enough to be forgotten. While other gods carved their names into temples and mountains, Hermes left his mark on motion itself. Every step, every breath, every fleeting thought of curiosity, that's where he still lives. In the rustle of wind between trees, in the flash of a clever idea, in the sudden courage to take a risk when logic says don't. That's Hermes, still running, still laughing, still carrying messages between worlds we can't see. After centuries, his temples turned to dust, his statues faded, but his spirit, it never stopped moving. Because you can't bury movement, you can't silence speed, and you can't kill mischief. The poets used to say Hermes was the god who guided souls to the underworld, the psychopomp, not the punisher, not the judge, just the guide, the gentle voice that says, "It's okay, you can cross now." He didn't drag the dead. He walked beside them, step for step, until the darkness became less frightening. And maybe that's what he still does. Even now, maybe every time you dream of someone who's gone, that calm, silver moment before you wake, that's Hermes walking you safely back. He's not just the god of speed. He's the god of passage, of beginnings and endings, of messages that never truly end. Long after Olympus fell quiet, after Zeus's thunder faded into myth, and Athena's wisdom became only words in a book, Hermes kept moving. He didn't wait for worship. He didn't crave prayers. He was too busy being everywhere. He became the heartbeat of the traveler, the rush before a kiss, the laughter after a lie that didn't hurt anyone. He became motion itself. And that's what makes him different from all the others. Hermes isn't a story you read. He's a feeling you catch, a rhythm, a reminder. When the roads are long, and your plans fall apart, and you think you've lost direction, he's that quiet instinct that says, "Keep moving," because Hermes never believed in stillness. He believed that even chaos has a melody, and that life, like a message, is only real when it's delivered. They say once he returned to the mortal world after centuries, not as a god but as a wanderer, a man with dusty sandals and a sly half-smile. He walked through cities filled with noise, with people running everywhere but going nowhere. He stopped at a cafe, watched strangers scrolling through glowing screens, speaking faster than they could think. And for the first time, Hermes laughed out loud, because this chaos was exactly his kind of world, a world that never stops, a world obsessed with speed, messages, and motion, a world that unknowingly worships him every day, through Wi-Fi, through text, through flight. He didn't need altars anymore. He had notifications, and that made him smile. But still, sometimes he misses the silence, the old roads, the stars that guided him long before compasses existed. And when the world gets too loud, he returns quietly to the edge of it all, to the place between night and dawn, between a heartbeat and the next. That's where Hermes lives now, in between gods and men, between the past and the present, between the last word and the next breath. And if you ever feel a breeze on your skin when there's no wind, or a sudden thought that pushes you to take the first step, maybe that's him, the god of motion, reminding you that the story isn't over yet. Because Hermes was never about the end. He was always about what comes next. Even death couldn't hold him. Even myth couldn't cage him. He's still out there, somewhere, barefoot on a road only he can see, carrying messages for souls that have forgotten how to dream. And maybe, just maybe, he's carrying one for you. So tonight, as you close your eyes, and the noise of the world softens into silence, listen closely. You might hear the flutter of wings, the faintest whisper of laughter, and the quiet voice of Hermes saying, "Keep moving, traveler. Your story isn't done yet."